If evolution has nearly perfected the most efficient way for humans to survive and reproduce, you might ask yourself, how could homosexuality preferences exist among individuals? One of the sole purposes of an individual's life is to produce viable offspring in order to increase their fitness and ultimately pass down their genes to future generations. So many experts ask, how can a trait like homosexuality, which has a genetic component, persist over evolutionary time if the individuals that carry the genes associated with the trait are not reproducing? We're here to help lead you in the right direction to answer this crucial question in evolutionary psychology. Homosexuality has been celebrated and shunned in various cultures throughout time and history. With different perspectives towards homosexuality, the research and understanding of this phenomenon has not always been accurately represented and portrayed. We see this unfair representation in research. This topic in human nature has just recently been studied among evolutionary psychologists. Even at this day and age, there's still an unequal amount of research among male homosexuality and female homosexuality. Most research is directed towards the understanding of male homosexuality. So far, research suggests that there are evolutionary benefits to homosexuality, particularly in men. These findings draw upon anthropology, biological, genetic, sociological, psychological, and evolutionary evidence. With the background information we've gathered from research evidence, we've constructed the argument that homosexuality can be naturally selected for and passed down through generations due to the fact that homosexuals aided their family members by sharing resources, assisting with child rearing, and other family members being potential carriers for the genes associated with homosexuality. We found from the researcher Ruse that homosexuals aided siblings through direct help in terms of hunting, domestic, and defense. Additionally, Weinrich found that the advantage of having a homosexual family member comes from the sharing of resources, but also through the socially beneficial influences in highly stratified ancestral societies, as well as partaking in roles such as childcare. Therefore, genes are passed down because family members are carriers for the same genes, and helping family members survive allows for these genes to be passed down.
So to start unpacking this argument that Taylor presented, I'll begin with the genetic factor. Researchers have shown that homosexuality is more common in brothers and relatives along the same maternal line. So how does it persist? If these homosexual individuals are not reproducing at the same rates or nearly the same rates of non-homosexual people, then how does this maternal line continue to persist over time? Researchers have shown that the same allele that makes the bearer attracted to men has an obvious reproductive advantage to women. There's an unknown mechanism in the X chromosome of the men's genetic code which helps women in the family have more babies but can lead to more homosexuality in their male offspring. From the environmental perspective, homosexual people play a role in some cultures as well. Paul Vasey's research in Samoa focuses on a theory called kin selection and the helper in the nest hypothesis. I asked some of my Samoan friends if they had heard about this or knew anything about this tribe. And this Fa'afafine tribe, they actually knew a lot about. They said that this group of people is very celebrated in the culture and they play a vital role in the community. Homosexual people in this tribe aid their family members by contributing money and performing what he called uncle-like activities such as babysitting or tutoring in their communities. So this ties together the environmental influence as well as the genetic influence that homosexual people have environmentally had to continue to pass down throughout time. Some of the homosexual person's genetic code is shared with their nieces and nephews, and so the theory goes that the genes which code for sexual orientation continue to get passed down. Additionally, we looked at a twin study conducted by Ghana et al. She analyzed many males and females, and their results found that the chance of two identical twins of being homosexual was about 40 to 50%. This was less than the percent for non-identical twins, but was still greater than the general population. In conclusion, there was a genetic effect, but also an environmental one. We also took a look at homosexuality in animals. There is a lot of homosexual behaviors that researchers have observed in many different kinds of animals. Nina's going to go into more depth about how this ties into our subject.
So what we've learned in class is that for a trait to survive, it must have a mechanism that allows it to thrive within its environment. As Angela discussed earlier, homosexual men in Samoa contributed to their families by babysitting and tutoring. This resulted in their familial DNA being passed down through their nieces and nephews via family care and enrichment. By helping their nieces and nephews survive, homosexual Samoans indirectly pass on their genetics by ensuring the survival of their family. Additionally, homosexuality continues to thrive in other parts of the animal kingdom via different mechanisms. One example is how birds will raise their young with two partners. Specifically, female partners who lack a long-term male partner will raise their chicks with another female partner. This is because chick rearing is very difficult and chicks need two parents working together in order to survive. And although female and male pairs are the best, female and female pairs rear better than females alone. Another example is male fruit flies. Their approach to mating is one of trial and error, in that they will mate with any other fruit fly until they can learn to recognize the smell of virgin females. Once they recognize the smell of the virgin females, they can put all of their energy just mating with them. This typically works best in the wild because depending on the habitats of each set of flies, females will have a different set of smells. And if males are hardwired to follow a distinct smell, they miss out on creating genetically diverse offspring. Beetles also use a really sneaky trick to pass on their genetics. Male beetles will mount other male beetles and leave their sperm on the males in hopes that their sperm will be transferred to females that second male has sex with. Although this homosexual behavior isn't for pleasure, it is to pass on genetics. And it's a little weird, but if it works, it works. And however, homosexual behavior is not restricted to passing on DNA. In fact, bottlenose dolphins, both male and females, will participate in sex with both genders to help create strong social bonds within their pods. This is important because strong social bonds will allow for a community to grow and allow the dolphins to feel connected to one another. The bonding allows them to know who their family is essentially and protect one another in case of an emergency. And unlike these examples, which are all rooted in homosexual behavior to pass on genetics, minus the dolphins, there is one animal that displays homosexual mating for life, and that's domesticated sheep. Researchers actually found that these sheep have smaller hypothalamus, which is known to release sex hormones. What they found is that with a smaller hypothalamus, these sheep were releasing less sex hormones than their heterosexual counterparts. This is actually similar to results from a human study conducted in 1991 by neuroscientist Simon LeVay. Despite the prevalence of homosexual behavior in animals or humans, there is actually still great controversy surrounding human sexuality. Most of this is due to how religion and culture affect attitudes regarding homosexuality. And although globally it is typical for there to be less tolerance in more religious countries than in less religious countries, there are some exceptions to this rule. Brazilians and Filipinos are much more tolerant of homosexuality despite their countries being very, very religious. And even though there is an increase in acceptance of homosexuality, only 28 countries currently perform same-sex marriage. Israel and Mexico both recognize same-sex marriage, but they do not perform marriages in their own country. Additionally, homosexual individuals are subject to violence worldwide, especially in Latin American countries, despite some of their more progressive laws. Evolutionary speaking, with greater deaths of homosexual individuals, they lose their ability to pass down their genes. And this is all really due to the great stigmatization individuals continue to face when coming out. Despite these sadder facts, the fight for LGBTQI rights seem to help reduce the stigma worldwide and help change views on homosexuality. With these changing views, homosexuality becomes less stigmatized, and evolutionary speaking allows for the survival of these individuals, thus allowing them to pass on their genetics.
Based on the biological research of how genes are passed down from homosexual individuals to the following generations, and with the evolutionary evidence like the helper hypothesis that we mentioned earlier, as well as evidence of homosexuality existing in other species across the animal kingdom, like dolphins, sheep, flies, birds, monkeys, and more, our argument for homosexuality being a trait that can be naturally selected for is valid and supported. Although homosexuality can be considered a controversial topic, it deserves more research directed towards the phenomenon and a fair representation in the field of evolutionary psychology because of its significance in the way that humans have evolved and explaining certain behaviors that we engage in. Thank you for watching our video, and if you have any questions or need any clarification, please reach out to us as we are happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.